Guys, you don't even know how nice it is to have an actually working computer. It's so beautiful. You may be surprised to see me reviewing this since I haven't hit my Patreon goal that would even allow me to afford food, let alone the one that would let me buy new figures to review. And this figure came out after my income vanished. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that I'm a man of my word, and I promised to review this thing back when it was released. So even though it's bad for my finances to pick it up, I did it anyways to not disappoint, because I am both admirably committed to keeping my word and dumb as hell. If you want to keep me from starving due to my own stupidity, and help me so I can afford to get more reviews to you all, please check out my Patreon. Any amount gets you a spot in the credits and votes on what some of my future videos will be. The more you donate, the more votes you get, but even $1 gets you at least some say. If even half of you donated $1 a month, I'd be able to do this show with no worries whatsoever. But I don't want you to even consider giving me anything unless you are completely financially secure. And if you decide to give me anything, and at any point money gets tight for you, do not give it a second thought. Feel free to end or reduce your patronage. You don't need to justify it to me, or apologize. I don't ever want to be a burden to you. I do this because I love making you guys laugh and saving you all from wasting money on things you may not like. Speaking of, let's see if this figure is one that you should be on the lookout for. Though, I guess it's a convention exclusive you might not be even able to get by the time this video comes out. Kingdom Beast Wars Ravage. This is a heavy retool of Kingdom Cheetor, changing just about everything they could with just about the only thing they left the same being the lower legs. And from the front, this is very accurate to his show counterpart, though I will say his arms seem a little scrawny, but otherwise this is a near perfect rendition of his show model. And I don't mind telling you all this, but for me, that's almost a bad thing because I've always hated this design. If there's one character in Beast Wars I think just has a flat-out bad design, it's Covert Agent Ravage. Everything about this was just so weird, I swear it's someone's persona. The head, the feet, the knee-high stockings, opera gloves, and one-piece bodysuit that in some shots I swear implies he has a package. I am sorry to taint your minds with this visual, but I had to suffer with it, so you have to suffer with it. Like, canonically, Ravage got reformatted into a Predacon. But what does that mean? It made him bipedal and gave him mass-shifting powers so he could turn into a real-world-sized cassette without Soundwave's help? Because he still has his old alt mode, just smaller, and he was already a human-sized character, so he was already fuel-efficient. Like, what did they do to Ravage to make him a Predacon? Cause from my point of view, they did basically nothing. And he's clearly not like the rest of them because everyone else has some kind of humanoid or robot head. He's literally the only character with a regular animal head plonked on his shoulders. So maybe the idea is that they cut off Ravage's head and stuck it on a new body? But here's the weird part. It's the wrong damn species. Ravage is supposed to be a panther. What is he doing with what's clearly a lion's head? Yet more evidence that this was someone's persona. They were a lion and they didn't care that it didn't make sense for Ravage. Like, how would this even happen? What process led him to being the only Cybertronian with an organic animal head who didn't scan a beast mode, but it's also not anything like the head he used to have? Anyways, yeah, I've always hated this design, with its weird wrong head, way too thick thighs, odd bland appearance, and stupid giant guns. When I first watched the show as a young child, I knew nothing about guns, except for the fact that spies used tiny ones. So as a kid, it always deeply offended me that he wandered around with a pair of huge ugly hand cannons. Transmutate scared me because she was supposed to be off-putting, but Ravage just pissed me off. That's not to say I'm not grateful to have this, because once again, Isaiah Jones helped me to get this. Thanks man, you have been a massive help. And that's not to say I think this is a bad representation of this design. I mean, I could rant all day about why I think every decision the designers made was a bad one, and you would all probably love that. But I'm here to review the figure. So what's that like? Well, like I said, from the front this is really accurate, but from behind it's less so. As a retool of Cheetor, it has the cat arms just stuck on there. And because they didn't really bother to retool them, the arms can't bend enough to stow neatly. The tail sticking out is accurate, though a weird and awkward detail that I think is just yet more evidence for my furry theory. So the back isn't right, but it had to be there for the transformation. What I would say is the only thing they just flat out got wrong with this figure is the feet. These are the one and only completely unchanged parts off the original Cheetor, and they don't fit. The character had claw feet, and these ugly little booties are just awful. Not only are they the wrong shape, not only are they the wrong color, not only are they ugly, but most damningly of all, they are tiny, and it makes standing the figure up a chore. Though the figure does seem better balanced than the Cheetor. This guy doesn't seem to have a lot of paint, but every detail it needed is there. Just about the only thing more I think they could have done is painted the underside of the cat paws silver to be the kneecaps he had in the show. But outside that minor detail, there's nothing you could really add to it. The chest is a little puffy, but you really only notice that when looking at him from the side. So yeah, I can say that this is very accurate to Beast Wars Ravage in his robot mode. And that extends to the head. Just about the only thing I think they got wrong here is the fact that they gave him pupils, when in the show they were completely blank. He's also kind of missing his weird, I don't know what to call it, back of head pyramid thing? The weird polygonal shape his face jutted out from. Like, was that supposed to be his hair? If it was, I can just feel the 90s wafting off of it. But they gave him his weird head lump, Can someone please explain the head lump to me? What is this? Where does it come from? And why does he have it? Were they like, yo, this cat head isn't robot enough, so let's put a lump on it so people know it's a machine? The eyes are painted well, and so is the mouth. Just damn, how do you get paint accents this small and detailed on a mass-produced figure that aren't tampos? Seriously, this is quite possibly the most impressive aspect of this whole figure. Another impressive aspect of this cat is his accessories. He comes with both his giant stupid hand cannons. They are well painted and probably look better in reality than they did in the show. Plus, they have these pegs sticking off the sides that allow them to peg like they are holstered into his thighs, which thankfully are less weirdly thick here than on the show model. And this is actually kind of part of the transformation meant to hide the silver of these parts from view. Ravage also comes with Ravage. Yeah, this is the original G1 cassette version of Ravage, and this is pretty cool to have because I've never owned a G1 cassette before. I do have the Masterpiece, and I almost like this more. Sure, it doesn't pose or look as good, but the transformation here is actually fun unlike the MP or Siege versions. Though, there is a degree of parts forming adding these huge chromed hip rockets that also come with this set. Why do these have scopes when they're mounted to his ass? The biggest problem with this minifigure is the fact that he is flat as a pancake, so it's really hard to get him to stand. The Masterpiece is for sure better, but I just find myself more willing to pick up and mess with this. Lastly, he comes with a really cool diorama that's kind of lame because it can't stand up on its own the way it's designed, because apparently the creators don't understand how physics work. Like, had this flap come straight down, it might have had a chance to be able to stand up on its own, but it doesn't and it can't. This is probably my favorite of the dioramas that came with any of the Transformers figures in recent memory, because it is both important and interactable. This is the bridge of Ravage's stealth ship from the show, and it has a slot for the brilliantly included G1 Ravage, so you can replicate the scene where Ravage turns into a tape to control his ship. God, it's so silly, I love it. Poseability on this is weird, inconsistent, and lots of fun. Head barely looks up and down, which is strange because it hinges all the way down from here for transformation. And it has limited side to side. I'd say it's just shy of enough on that front, not the worst, but not great. Incredibly stiff jaw that opens and closes, great forward butterfly, maximum shoulders, maximum elbows, mafia elbows, wrist swiv, you have to move the cat arms to use the waist, legs kick forward and to the side great, but it has no back at all in any way, shape, or form. Knees also kind of suck, pulling a good bit less than a 90, honestly they bend more mafia, and the feet have all the range you could ask for. So yeah, he's got a lot to like and a lot to hate, plus some stuff that's good for a laugh in terms of posability. Transformation is interesting. As a retool of Cheetor, you wouldn't think this would be so different, but the only part of this that's recognizable as Cheetor is the legs. The torso is a little frustrating because it's all about getting clearance for the arms to pass through it, so that's irritating when it's the new and interesting part of the process. Also, they've added the aforementioned parts forming to hide the hips from the sides, and then we get to his odd made-up cat mode that was never in the show. And I don't know that this is really working at all. What is this even supposed to be? It's got the head of a lion, the legs of a cheetah, the butt of a rocket booster, and the torso of the Hulk. Interestingly enough, they seem to have reversed the direction of the cat biceps. These are on backwards, and the result is the legs don't bend as much as they're supposed to. So, it's hard to get him into any cat-like stance. This is a relatively goofy alt mode, seemingly only here because it's a transformer, so it must transform. This is yet another character who would have probably been served better by being in the red line. It's amazing how that line keeps getting used on characters it shouldn't, and then on the characters who should appear in it, they just don't. Poseability on this is actually way better than the Cheetor, with the head actually being able to move and still having the opening mouth, backwards butterfly on the cat's shoulders, lots of range on the shoulders, bad elbows on the front ones, rear legs have the same amount of movement as the Cheetor, and the tail actually articulates up and down. So this is a strange figure. A retool that leaves barely anything of the original figure, of a completely whacked out design that makes no sense for the character it is, nor the universe it comes from. It poses both great and poorly at the same time, transforms interestingly and predictably, comes with a bunch of really cool accessories, and the alt mode is a weird, unconvincing hodgepodge of parts. A complete mutant of a thing with backwards arms, a swollen torso, and a silver ass. Plus the whole thing costs probably about 2.5 times as much as it should. If you are being generous and valuing the accessories highly, then 2 times what it should. For a chug scale version of this character, this is our only option. Though, if you want a Masterpiece instance, Transarts did one. And I'd be hard-pressed to suggest that this is a bad one. It looks mostly right, the articulation basically evens out, and the accessories are awesome. And the cat mode is basically just a weird bonus that you can choose to ignore if you don't like it. Hell, if you hate that aspect enough, you can clip off all the cat bits and have a perfectly workable figure without them. The real downside of this figure is that it was a convention exclusive and it was expensive. If it weren't for the price, I'd say go for it. At the price, I'd say only pick this up if you are really sure it's what you need. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.